One question I actually wanted to ask you before we let you go is you've also talked about you've talked recently with the New York Times about what the future of the Democratic Party looks like and what maybe young enterprising.
And by the way, sorry to cut it off again, but I keep seeing this, fucking idiotic meme on Twitter, which is that, Bernie is bad because at the end of the day, all he's going to do is redirect all of this revolutionary left-wing movement energy right back into the graveyard that is the Democratic Party. You'll see this fucking meme everywhere you look, specifically on Twitter. People love to tar and feather Bernie with this notion that he's actually just like a secret sheepdog, and his actual mission is just to, sheepdog all of these progressives into the Democratic Party. In reality, this is the truth. He literally published this op-ed a couple months ago, if not like a month ago, actually encouraging left-wingers and progressives not to run as Democrats when possible in places like Nebraska. Obviously, Bernie endorsed Dan Osborne, who ran as an independent against not only an establishment Republican, but an establishment fucking Democrat.
And came close to winning.
Yeah, it came very close to winning, partially thanks to Bernie Sanders' endorsement. Obviously, as Bernie's about to mention, he himself is also an independent.
Individuals must do, and I believe I'm paraphrasing here. You said something along the lines of like running as an independent rather than utilizing the party.
For me, that's not a very radical concept because I am the longest serving independent in American congressional history, and I've always run as an independent. Look, I think the Democrats over the years deserve credit for the work they've done on women's rights, on gay rights, on civil rights in general, fighting bigotry. They deserve credit, and they've made progress. But I don't think anybody with a straight face can tell you that they've stood up for the working class of this country. And I think that's why so many working class people have drifted into the Republican Party, not because they believe in tax breaks for billionaires.
Exactly that right there. Gavin and I were just down at the border between Missouri and Arkansas, deep in the Ozarks, right? And we were trying to get people to talk to us, and not a lot of people were interested in engaging with us in good faith, but I was able to wrangle down one gentleman who was about 60 years old, and he had sunglasses on that were Oakleys, and he wanted to talk to me when I had my sign out and Gavin was going to the bathroom or something, and he was like, you want to know what my message to liberals is? If you're still voting for the Democrats after 40 years, you're stupid. They left the working class a long time ago. See, that guy could be swayed to vote for the Democrats if they were going to look out for his wallet. He knows they're not going to, and he's like, so I'm going to vote for the Christian fascists because I agree with their culture war arguments.
Do you think he was a rich guy or a more working class kind of guy?
I would say that he probably floated the line, right? I would say he's the kind of guy that could afford to take his boat out on the weekends, but not the kind of guy that's going shopping for a second house. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I was like, if he was really rich, then he might just be voting based on like, I don't want to pay more taxes and shit. In that case, it is kind of hard to get that person back.
Through that. No, he seemed like he was a Branson vacationer. You know what I mean? He seemed like the kind of guy that, I mean, if you're rich like that, you go on vacation to Vegas, you go on vacation to the Florida Keys. I feel like a lot of people that vacation in Branson, they are in that like middle income bracket that actually would be impacted by, Bernie Sanders policies of uplifting working people.
100%.
Or they don't believe that climate change is real. Yes, they look at the Democrats and there's not much there. So what my view is people should think about running as they want. Progressive independents should run as progressive Democrats, but don't necessarily feel that you have to run within the Democratic Party. And I think as you may recall, in Nebraska, a fellow named Dan Osborne ran a really, really powerful campaign as an independent.
And by the way, as a reminder, Bernie endorsed that guy. And I keep seeing this other stupid bullshit too, which is like, oh, Bernie, like he won't start a third party. Like, why isn't Bernie Sanders starting a third party? As if there's not already enough on this fucking guy's plate. He's a senator. He's going around the country trying to rally the people against the oligarchy, all this kind of shit. People are like, why doesn't he fucking start a third party? Well, I think that's a lot to ask of a single person at this stage in his life. And would I be enthusiastic about that? Yeah, obviously. I would fucking love it if Bernie Sanders was like, we're starting a new movement, a workers' party, a people's party to take over and replace the Democrats. That would be awesome. But I do think this situation, the one in which Dan Osborne was endorsed by Bernie, I think it proves that if there was a third party, an actual, serious third party movement with a serious third party candidate that did emerge to challenge the duopoly, the fact that Bernie endorsed Dan Osborne in Nebraska actually leads me to believe that Bernie would be on board with that movement. Don't you think so, Zach? If there was a third party candidate or an independent candidate that was as serious as Dan Osborne, who actually had a chance of winning like Dan Osborne did at the national level, don't you think Bernie would endorse that person over like a fucking Gavin Newsom for like a total establishment Democrat type?
Oh, of course. And I think that the reality is that based off of his experience and the fact that he's been a senator for 20 fucking years and he was a congressman before then, he understands that you can win as an independent. I think he thinks it's a massive albatross around your neck to win as a third party candidate. And I think that if you actually take the time to listen to Bernie Sanders' thoughtful critiques of why he doesn't pursue a third party, because people pretend like he's never talked about it before. They pretend that Bernie Sanders has never in his entire life even thought about or speculated like, hey, maybe I should, start a third party. Of course he has. But the reality is that people act like that once you have a third party, it immediately means that that third party is viable to run for president. He's talked about how the math makes way more sense to run as a Democrat, even if you are an independent, because of the infrastructure in place. And you could be like, they've handicapped him. They've taken his knees out every single time. And I will say that's true. He got a lot fucking further than Ralph Nader did. He got a lot fucking further than Jill Stein did. He got a lot fucking further than Howie Hawkins or any other of the candidate take your pick did, right? So I think his math kind of was borne out right there. And I think his whole point is whatever benefit you think you would get from building a third party, you would also get from having a coalition of independent nonpartisans, right? Say that I have 3 guys that are in the Senate now that are all Democratic socialists that are going to take hard votes. Well, how is that any different than having 3 members of a socialist party that are in the Senate? You know what I mean? If you're going to work together, collaborate, and function as a block, you have all of the benefits without the baggage of a political party.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that there is some truth to that. Now, I'm with Gavin that I would support a third party effort if it was serious and if it had, somebody like Bernie Sanders to get behind it and really roll
Or
it up
even
the
Dan
hill.
Osborne. If he ran as an independent, like even if it was just like not associated with some third party, but just as an independent, I think Bernie would support that guy.
Oh, I mean, he did, right?
I just mean at the presidential level. Like, I think if someone as serious as Dan Osborne ran as an independent in 2028, the Democrats nominate some establishment hack like Gavin Newsom, the Republicans nominate some fascist, I think Bernie would go with the independent populist, the progressive. That's what I'm saying. And I think that that's, what makes it so ridiculous that people want to act like Bernie is just some shill for the Democrats, when in the reality is in the past, when he hasn't endorsed Jill Stein or the Green Party or whatever, it's just because he knows it's not serious. He knows they have no chance of winning. So he's like, why would I, endorse something that's not serious, that has no chance of winning? But if it did have a chance of winning, and if it was serious, I think Bernie would be 100% there. He'd be behind it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what it boils down to is the fact that I just don't think that situation's ever emerged, obviously, right? You know what I mean? The closest that a third-party person has come actually was as an independent. Or was Ross Perot, he ran as an independent, but he ran as an independent under the Reform Party.
Something like that.
So technically he had a party, the Reform Party, but on the ballot, he was an independent. And he won like 18% of the popular vote, which was a shitload, right? We talk about it took George Herbert Walker Bush's legs out from underneath him, and it's the only reason that Bill Clinton never became president. But yeah, it still wasn't like they did that under the Reform Party, getting votes like you would vote for a Democratic Party candidate.
I also think there's something to be said. I don't know if you remember this, Zach, but right after Donald Trump left the White House in 2020 and Joe Biden was sworn in, maybe it was 2021 technically, but there was this brief talk, there was this brief effort from the Trump campaign and from the MAGA base to start a third party. They were going to call it the Patriot Party.
I do remember that.
We made a YouTube video. You can probably look it up right now. Just type in the Vanguard Trump Patriot Party or third party, something like that. This was, the talk of the town online for like 2 or 3 months following Donald Trump's, defeat, his ouster from the White House after January 6th. And there was this, consensus that, the establishment Republican rhinos, they're not here for us. We have to abandon them. We have to start this Patriot Party. That's the only way we're going to get Trump back in the White House. I think, in retrospect, we would all agree that Trump was better suited not doing that. That he was better off taking back over the Republican Party, which was already there, which was already a ready vessel for him, with the whole voter base prepared to support him. And I think it's kind of a similar thing right now. It's like, as much as I would fucking love there to be a serious third party movement here, there's really just not. And until there is, you can't really blame people for being like, hey, maybe we should do to the Democratic Party what Trump has clearly done to the Republican Party. Take that motherfucker over. And there's more of a mandate now than ever. There's actual energy now.
absolutely. We can keep watching, but that's a great point.
Yeah, sorry, we got off on a bit of a spiel there. There's only like a minute left in this, so let's wrap her up.
Running as a very proud trade unionist, running on economic issues, and he did extremely well, much better than anyone had anticipated. So that was my point, and I think it makes sense.
Do you feel like there's any sort of momentum to break through the duopoly in this structure as someone who has run as an independent? And
It is.
a long career?
It's a long discussion. If you're asking me, do I think we could start a third party tomorrow? I don't, for a lot of reasons, having to do with restrictions in various states making it almost impossible. But I think what you're seeing is massive discontent with both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. More and more people are looking for, I think, independent alternatives.
Yeah. Oh, you? Yeah. Okay.
And that's it.
All right.
But-
Listen, great to see you.
We'll hopefully.
Enough of that third party talk. I got to get the fuck out of here.
What's crazy though to me, and what I think is worth marinating on a little further, is the fact that Bernie's rallies are drawing more people now than they did in 2020, right? And so what he's saying right there is totally true. It's borne out by the reality and by the traction that he's getting, and by the fact that MSNBC is now broadcasting these rallies. He has taken over the Democratic Party to a degree, right? He has made a huge dent in taking over the mainstream Democratic Party media apparatus, right? As you pointed out, it's a night and day tonal shift, the way that they talk about him now versus even the way they talked about him in 2020, let alone 2016, when the anti-Bernie vitriol was cranked up to levels you guys can't even fathom if you weren't reading it at the time. I mean, the Hillary Clinton sycophants were just dogged and deranged in their criticism of Bernie Sanders and his supporters. And now it seems like who really is left in that, ardent neoliberal, I stand the Democrats, I love Barack Obama base. It's shrinking. It was not enough to coalesce behind Kamala Harris and get the job done. And so they're going to have to reckon with an alternative. And I think that if this Tea Party style, movement keeps swelling, by 2028, the Democrats could be taken over just like Donald Trump took over the Republican Party.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. It's crazy the fact that the establishment of the Democratic Party has surrendered to such a degree that void really has been opened up. But yeah, I don't really see anyone else filling that void of leadership. Not Gavin Newsom. He's playing patty cake with Steve Bannon over on his dumbass podcast. I don't see Pete Buttigieg doing all that much. Tim Walz is out there, but it's Bernie, bro. It's Bernie. He's the guy. Whatever you want to say about it, he is the one leading the Democratic Party right now. And it's going to be really interesting to see what that leads to, because obviously the elephant in the room is that the guy is old as fuck. He probably is not going to run again. But it'll be interesting to see if he can transfer that support into a candidacy of someone like AOC. Because the only thing I am kind of worried about, Zach, is that hopefully there is a primary in 2028. That's what we're operating on, the assumption of, the optimistic assumption that there will be a Democratic primary. I am kind of worried that, he has all this energy, he has all this momentum, but he can't really transfer it into anybody. And then, a charming, greasy Gavin Newsom, is able to kind of steal some of that just by their rhetorical power on that debate stage, and all of Bernie's energy and momentum kind of evaporates because he's not there to soak it up, and AOC or whoever it is can't quite embody that. Do you think that's something to be worried about?
I mean, it's definitely a problem that has to be solved, right? And I think that Bernie Sanders is being intentional about it by bringing people like AOC along for these rallies. I think he understands he needs an heir to his movement. I think AOC is clearly going to be an integral part of sustaining his movement after he's gone, after he's retired. I don't think he will seek re-election as a senator. I think that there's maybe like an 8% chance that he runs for president in 2028. He would be like 85 years old, 86 years old. So then he would be 90, 91 when he leaves office. It's almost impossible to think about, guys. I mean, really, it's almost impossible to think about. However, I do think it's also fair that he's trying to give one last push on the Overton window so that when that primary arises, he is able to give a hearty endorsement to whoever is going to take the mantle towards the next chapter, and potentially, get the job done in a way that he never was able to, right? Like finally reach across the finish line. And it would be with the assistance of Bernie Sanders. And that could be anybody from Tim Walz to AOC, somebody we haven't heard about. It could be Sean Fain decides to get into politics. I mean, at this point, it's just total speculation. I think Tim Walz is probably priming himself to run. And then obviously Greasy Gavin and Pete Buttigieg will be there to stand in the way and try and convince people that that's the way to go. Pete Buttigieg, I think, is really might be a dark horse threat for the liberal vote. I could see a lot of people trying to make him happen again.
Look out the door if you hear an ambulance. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there, sir. The Vanguard will be there. Be there. The